Trying to go past the beach isn't too easy, eh, Turkey? Hello guys, it's 899 here and welcome to today's video, and today we're going to go through our tips and predictions for round 16 of the 2026 NRL season. Last week, I'm going to be honest, I didn't really pay that much attention. Let's actually have a quick run through and see how we did. We did 3 out of 5, which is not bad at all. Yeah, I didn't really watch any of the NRL this week. I've been kind of preoccupied with a certain other sporting event, but yeah, it's been pretty good getting into some more NRL. So let's see how we think this round will go. So without further ado, let's get started. Starting off on Friday night, we have the Newcastle Knights taking on the St George Illawarra Dragons. The Knights have a game on prime time. It's a miracle. Both teams are coming in off the bye, but both teams also in their previous matches are coming off losses. The Knights 2 weeks ago in a close game against the Melbourne Storm, whilst the Dragons are coming off their loss to the Cronulla Sharks. As of recording this, we're about an hour or so away from the team list dropping, so we don't really know what the Knights team is going to look like. I'm going to just assume that Dylan Lucas and Callum Ponga aren't going to be playing in this because, well, I mean, they're playing 2 days prior in Melbourne for Game 2 of State of Origin. So I don't really know what kind of team we're going to be seeing. I'd be very shocked if they do back up. So it could be a bit of a strenuous team. It could be quite a close game actually. So pretty decent opportunity here for the Dragons to possibly get just their second win of the year. But I'm going to back the boys. I'm going to say that I think the Knights get the job done and hope so we can try to start bounce back and try to cement ourselves within the top 8. Now we go into Saturday's matches where at 3 PM we have the West Tigers taking on the Dolphins at Campbelltown Stadium. Both teams did play last week with the Dolphins B grade slapping up the Roosters B grade 48 points to 10, whilst the West Tigers fended off the Gold Coast Titans in what is going to be one of the last games at Leichhardt Oval for the foreseeable future as this new whole stadium development thing gets done, but a very high scoring, entertaining game, 36 points to 28. I think if the Tigers are very much in the seriousness of wanting to push for the finals, I think this is the game that they need to win to convince them, but the Dolphins have been red hot. Is the question of how many of the Dolphins players are going to back up, because there is a distinct amount of Dolphins players playing in the game as of recording this tomorrow night. So it'll be very hard to say, but yeah, Tigers still very much outsiders in this. I think this will be a close game. I think the Tigers start building momentum. I'm going to say bit of an upset in terms of, I guess, the betting market or whatever, because we can't agree on what an upset is. But I do think the West Tigers are going to go against the grain and get the win over the Dolphins. Moving on to 5:30, we go north of the border as we go to see the Gold Coast Titans taking on the Penrith Panthers. As mentioned in the previous match, the Titans are coming off a high-scoring but close defeat to the West Tigers, whilst the Panthers are coming off a bye. Again, it's going to be another couple of questions of who's going to be involved in the team. Obviously, Penrith still got a fair amount of players still questioning whether they're going to back it up. To be fair, I feel like it's going to be more so likely, but you just don't know as we're recording ahead of this time. But it'll be interesting to see if the Titans can get the job done, because they have been in close contention for some of their games, and Penrith, in a couple of results, have made it very close and uncomfortable for themselves, but still been able to squeak out wins. But I feel like this Panthers team really should just get over the line, so I'm going to say I think the Panthers win this match. We go to 7:35, we go to Accor Stadium as we have the Canterbury Bulldogs taking on the Manly Sea Eagles. Both teams are coming off the bye from last week, so their previous matches 2 weeks ago, Manly beat the South Sydney Rabbitohs 28 points to 14, whilst the Bulldogs had a 14-12 win over the Parramatta Eels on the King's birthday. Manly have just been an absolutely completely different team under the tutelage of Kieran Foran, and I feel like this is a game that they should win on paper. But this also could be a game of motivation for the Bulldogs to try to rescue their season a little bit, because they've not been convincing for a majority of this year. So this could be a win that could start getting the gears turning. But I'm going to say I think Manly might just be too strong as Fosball keeps it going. What's the actual difference with Fosball? I don't know. It's one of those anomalies, but well, I do think the Manly Sea Eagles will get the job done. And now we move on to Sunday games. We're at 2 p.m. We go over the ditch and we go to the South Island. We go to Christchurch, brand new stadium, as it's the New Zealand Warriors taking on the North Queensland Cowboys. The Warriors are coming off a very close, low-scoring and controversial game in a 10-8 loss to Cronulla, whilst the Cowboys are coming off a bye. Now, a win for the Cowboys is going to be crucial because with South Sydney in 8th on the bye, it's going to potentially cause a bit of a gap opening up of the top 8 to the rest if some teams drop points, which are being the Cowboys and the Tigers. So it's very important for them to get the win, but obviously the Warriors still want to just keep on rolling with the top 2 and try to wrestle back some of the hiccup that happened last week. So as much as I want to say that I think the Cowboys can win this, I think it'll be a little bit closer, but I just think that it is going to be the Warriors getting the job done in a stadium which could host a potential rival, depending on if this expansion does happen to the South Island. Will it happen? I don't know. Should it happen? Not for me to decide. Now we go into the 4:05 game as we go back across to Australia, again to Amy Park in Melbourne, as we see the Storm take on the Canberra Raiders. The Melbourne Storm are coming off a bye, having previously played 2 weeks ago in a close win against the Knights, whilst the Raiders are coming off a 15-12 loss to Parramatta last week. These two teams, I need to remind you, were in the top 4 last year, and it's now a match between 11th and 13th. It's been a really weird season. To be completely honest, I think Canberra's just been a little bit lost here, and I feel like if Ethan Strange doesn't back up for them, but then again, he wouldn't have to travel that far because, well, the game's going to be in Melbourne anyway, so I think there's probably a very much likelihood he will back up for this. So yeah, I think if the Raiders don't start getting their act together, I just don't think they're going to make the finals at all. At this point, Melbourne very much starting to get a charge up, trying to, wrestle back some control. They've got a few buys coming their way, so very much likely, but it's going to be a very tight scrap to see them try to make the finals, and I think this is going to continue. I think the Storm are going to win in a pretty decisive match against Canberra. And now we go into the final game as we head to Sydney, as we go to Allianz Stadium, as we have the Sydney Roosters taking on the Cronulla Sharks. Both teams will call this stadium home for a bit. Yeah, it's going to... I wonder if it's going to get to the point where all the Sydney teams are just going to play out of Allianz, because I know there's all this bitching about, oh, South Sydney, but no, every team. A pretty depleted Roosters team came off being demolished 48 points to 10 by the Dolphins, whilst the Sharks are coming off a close, controversial, questioning, but a win nonetheless against the New Zealand Warriors across the ditch, 10 points to 8. This really will be a deciding factor on what these teams are going to be. Like, we've had points in time where it's like there's questions about, oh, these two teams, very much if they just switched on, they could very much be title contenders, but there's just been questions and lapses in control. But I think the Roosters going in this game favourites is understandable. Cronulla could definitely see them getting the win here, but it's just about getting that properly switched on. In terms of how I see this match going, I think it'll be a tight one, but I'm going to say that I think the Roosters will just edge it out. And I think, yeah, it's going to be close, but it's one of the harder games to predict because you just don't know what mood either team's going to be in. And that is the end of the video. Who do you guys have this week? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you all later.